vision for the future, and realizing that without sound, solid legislation that is in the best interest of all Virgin Islanders, we cannot move forward to the future that we rightfully deserve. This is Alma Francis Heiliger, number 13.
Thank you very much. We'll ask candidate Joseph Gums. 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone, listening and viewing public. The candidate for the delegate, our senator at large, my fellow aspirants, and our distinguished panel. My name is Joseph Wojo Gums. I'm number 28 on your ballot. I'm an ICM candidate for the position of senator. I would like to thank you this afternoon for giving me this opportunity to share my vision with the people of the Virgin Islands as to where I see improvements can be made and where we could move forward and progress and prosper as a people in the future. My experience of service to this community as a police officer for 30 years, as a union official for 25 years, and also my service to the country as a member of the armed forces have shown me that service is foremost necessary in order to be able to be a leader. You have to follow before you can lead. You have to serve before you can lead, and I have done both. I am prepared with your voice, and my slogan has been, your voice matters, because with your voice, with your words, with your ideas, I will be able to move forward with legislation that will benefit this entire community. We are suffering here, and there's definitely need for some difficult decisions. Some painful decisions will have to be made, and you need people who could do this honestly and forthrightly. I am willing to be one of those people. I am willing to serve you with your support, and with one of your precious votes, I will be able to do that for you, and I wish that opportunity for both of us. My name is Joseph Wojo Gums. I'm number 28 on your ballot, and I thank you for listening this afternoon.
And our final candidate president, Mr. Kent Bernier Sr.
Good afternoon, and Ms. Ottley, I want to thank you again, as well as Decision 2012, along with the panel and my other colleagues here, that our interest here is to serve. I just want to let you know, my view is we already have legislation on the books that should be taking us out of this financial hardship. Our issues here in the Virgin Islands, it's an educational issue. It's education with legislation. That's what needs to be done. We already have the Tax Study Commission. We have a 5-year plan, and we need to have a comprehensive economic sustainable plan reactivated. We were here in 2000 before, and we took the government's budget revenue stream from $400 million to $1.2 billion. Presently, I want to educate my former colleagues as to why the financial side of this is very important. You see, within the last 6 years, we've borrowed up to $2.2 billion. So we have to pay $160 million every year for the next 20 years to pay off the debt. We also have another $1.4 billion of unfunded liability. That's to GRS, and that's a moving target. We also have another $600 million between WAPR, Port Authority, VI University, as well as the EDA. This comes up to about $4.2 billion in debt this government has. It's an obligation of the people. As I said to you, our GDP is only $3.6 billion. That's, I'm discussing, it's education. And that's the level I want to take our legislatures to make sure they understand the amount of debt our children have to pay and why our senior citizens are suffering. I want to let you know, I'll consider being your public servant. I would like for you to consider voting me on November 6th, number 36. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to direct our first question to a senator at large from our first panelist, former Senator Liston Davis.
Good afternoon once again to the viewing and listening audience, as well as to the aspirants or senatorial candidates for the 30th legislature, as well as the candidate for the United States Congress. Welcome. I listened, Senator Bassinger, I listened carefully to your opening statement in which you were asking the people to return you to office, in which you can focus on the scaling audit that was performed on the legislature. And you indicated or you implied that you're concerned that of the You're concerned about the $6.9 million, whether it was misspent or inappropriately used. Can you clarify the issue that the voting public believes, and you can answer whether it's correct or wrong, believes that the senators, on the interpretation of their understanding of the audit, stole $6.9 million?
Thank you, Senator Davis. Clearly, there was not $6.9 million stolen, and that is something where the public's frustration has caused them to jump to that conclusion. What has happened is that an audit was done covering the 26th, 27th, and 28th legislatures. And the bad news is, the good news is that it wasn't actually stolen, it was misspent. There could have been some kickbacks, but I haven't heard anyone tell exactly who got it. It's very clear that someone got $25,000 in travel expenses, and they didn't travel, and they didn't turn in a report, and they didn't give it back, and they didn't file it on their taxes. So that's a problem that was in the audit report that anyone can read. We've published that audit report on our website, visenate.org, so anyone can see it very easily. There was another senator who took $92,000 to buy copies of Danish archival documents. Doesn't make a lot of sense. That's a function of DPNR's Division of Libraries and Archives. So there is something wrong. And that's the good news, is that it wasn't all necessarily stolen. The bad news is we don't know what the truth is. I wrote 2 letters at the behest of my constituents, one in December and one even more strongly worded in January of this year, demanding that we get that information from Senator Russell, and he has not supplied that information. So what I can tell you is that the Inspector General has told me that of what they found, only 10% was in the audit report, and they believe they found only 10% of what there is. That means that that audit report only tells us about 1/100th of the misdeeds that were done. So we have a serious problem we have to correct.
Thank you.
Our second question will go to candidate for delegate to Congress, Mr. Mosler. Our panelist, Dr. Richardson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mosler.
Afternoon.
With what spurs do you prick the sides of your intent for running for the position of delegate to Congress?
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, certainly. With what spurs do you prick the sides of your intent for running for the position of delegate to Congress?
With what spurs do I prick the sides of? If you could just help me with that a little bit. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. From the pages.
I've been here 10 years. I haven't heard that one yet. At least not used that way.
Yes. Thank you, sir. From the pages of literature, a line from Macbeth, he said, "I have no spurs at which to prick the sides of my intent, nor vaulting ambitions which leaps me over." You indicated that you are sufficiently wealthy enough. You have a company, you own Wall Street, and you've moved the company here to the Virgin Islands. Subsequently, I'm asking then, he said he had no spurs. And I am asking you, with what spurs do you prick the sides of your intent? For one, having come to the Virgin Islands, being financially independent, it causes you now to want to run for the delegate to Congress position.
Okay, so why am I running for office?
Simply put, yes. Simply put, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm running for office for the same reason I did the last 2 times, which is simply a matter of conscience.
Okay.
I see what I see, and it breaks my heart, and I know I have proposals that and solutions for many of our problems, and running is a chance to implement them. I know I have a good solution to bring down our WAPA bills. I've got my whole list of proposals right here. I know I can get 1,000 new jobs over at Ovensa, getting started on the cleanup right away. I know that we can make all the private schools free for all students who can get in, so that the criteria becomes merit rather than money, which I think is the most unfair of all conditions for our children. And it would also lead to a vast expansion of opportunities for all kinds of children that are now shut out of the system. I'd like to submit legislation to the Congress to amend the Organic Act so we can reduce the number of senators to 7. I'd like to submit legislation because I know we can get the right to vote for President of the United States the same way the military does through absentee ballot, and I'd like to get that done. Let me say that I did go to the hospital, and I asked if they could remove my conscience so that I wouldn't have to do this. Okay. They politely told me that no, they can't do that. So here I am running for office. Now, when I told this story before, somebody said to me, should I say this? Yes?
Feel free.
They told me that's not true. They can remove your conscience, but not until after you take office.
Excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll ask Senator Liebert to pose his first question to candidate Joseph Gomes.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon. I just want to piggyback on what Senator Davis asked Senator Bassinger and his response. If you listen to his response, it sounds like he's having a problem getting the information of the audit from the president. Should I be? What's your thought on that?
Well,
If you are senator,
well, I'm totally surprised that that would be a problem, that all information that is concerning the legislature, all senators should have access to it, whether you're in the majority or the minority. So I'm quite surprised that that's the problem. I believe that most of the people in this community feels, and I would have to say that I am one of them, that all the senators are fully aware of who are the individuals that allegedly have done these misdeeds, and that this information should be brought forward by these senators, and they should not have to wait until the Senate President, Senator Russell, takes this action. So it quite surprises me that this is the situation. But should this be, then once I am elected with the support of the people of the Virgin Islands, if they feel that I'm worthy of this, I would make sure that all senators have the information that is fully accessible to the people, because each individual senator was voted on by this whole entire community, thus meaning each senator represents this entire community. So then they should have the information necessary to present to their constituents, because the responsibility of the senator is to represent the people. Once the representation is not done, then the senators have failed in their obligation to the people of the Virgin Islands. And the people of the Virgin Islands then need to take forth the necessary steps, which is come election day, November 6th, to remember who is going to be the people that's going to be responsive and who are the people who have not been responsive. So again, I'd like to thank you for that question. I'm number 28 on the ballot, Joseph Wojo Gomes.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next question will be posed to candidate Alma Francis Heidegger from our panelist, Mr. Davis.
I really wanted to stay off of Alma. I asked her so much for the day already.
I ain't got none from Rocky yet. I waited.
So you ought to go back to Rocky. Because I, in your previous appearance before the panelists, you had a serious concern about public safety.
Yes.
In addition to the high crime, you believe that the department is somewhat negligent in solving crimes expeditiously. And therefore, the possibility of giving the criminal element the feeling that they're not going to get caught And the reason for that is the department has a forensic unit, but it needs to be married to a forensic lab. How much money and personnel, including personnel, you will be able to identify from a funding source, or how would you go about getting a funding source to build a comparable lab that would probably cost between maybe 25, between 6, 10, or $25 million?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. This is something that I have adamantly studied because it's very near and dear to me. As I mentioned before, my brother was murdered 1.5 years ago, and in dealing with the officers, this was one of the issues that they had. Every time I speak to them, it's like we had to send stuff away, and a lot of times the information comes back 1 year, 2 years later, and that's a serious concern. When you have a criminal element, and when they're realizing that, guess what, I could go and do 10, 15 crimes, and the probabilities of me getting caught in a timely manner is very slim, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. One of the biggest things you just asked in regards to money, I have already identified a grant that could give the Virgin Islands $30 million in order to build a forensic lab. Currently, right now, I know 3 college students that are away studying forensic science. So the problem is, it's not that we don't have the students that want to come home, but if it doesn't exist, what are they coming home to do? So they're going to stay away, and they're going to work for other companies instead of coming home and trying to help alter the course these Virgin Islands are going on. It is very important. I even asked the question, I wonder why our own government have not gone after these grants, but we see what happens a lot of times with grant monies. They get returned. And the public starts to question, you know something? Does it have to do a lot with them wanting the grant monies, or because they can't do what they want with them? And if you can't do what you want with federal funding and you have to return it, sometimes they don't even bother applying for it in the first place. I mean, these are the types of things that frustrate me here in our community. And unless you put senators in place that are seriously going to fight for us and say, you know something, we don't always have to dip into the general fund to come up with monies to do these things. The federal government is there. We need to partner with our delegate to Congress and say, you know something, what grants are available to help provide these types of institutions and programs here in the Virgin Islands? We are U.S. citizens. We cannot always be treated like part-time citizens just because we live in the middle of the Caribbean. I am a United States citizen. We have the right to vote, and I feel we should get every opportunity to get all the benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be posed to candidate Kent Bernier Sr. Dr. Richardson?
Good afternoon, Mr. Bernier.
Good afternoon, sir.
We have noticed that several times most of our patients or people here, when it comes to health care, cannot receive the kind of care which they deem necessary and which their physicians or their health care provider deems necessary, and they have to go away. Not only that, with the increased cost of insurance, whether it's Cigna or whatever the particular carrier may be, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we find that it's cost prohibitive for them to operate. What do you think? What do you recommend? What do you think you, along with the persons who will be elected, can do to alleviate that problem to our people? We are bleeding, we are suffering, we're dying.
Thank you for that question, because as a former financial advisor to Governor Turnbull, I accompanied him to many Governors Association functions. And I was in a position to talk to some of the insurance carriers, especially Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think our government waits the last minute to attack any situation. We are at fault, and the behavior and the crisis is man-made here. It's no way we could continue this behavior because the people suffer. Presently, the Senate should engage with the administration, and there should be some legal action. There's no way after 20, 30 years, our retirees should be all of a sudden within 2 weeks cut off of their retirement insurance and pay a substantial amount of increase without proper due process. A certified letter for 60 days, some type of notice. It's inhumane what our legislature is letting happen to our people. I would say to you that I would even consider, with today's technology, I want to share with you, I was the gentleman, along with my colleagues, actually created a cancer center and a cardiac center. Along with those centers, you were supposed to have 60 to 90 room hotel next door. Therefore, people from the region and the Caribbean would make this a pleasant place as a regional area. And that's really what's lacking. But I said to you that at a time when our premiums were 27 million, I tried to lock them in for 10, 15 years. I was overturned by certain people that had special interests. But today, I would consider self-insurance, $130 million, if we keep that in our territory and make sure our benefits and those funds circulate here, that might be the way to go. Self-insurance is the key. $130 million and what we pay to the hospital, another $60 million, we could have the best health care in the world. That's the type of leadership I bring to our colleagues in the 38th legislature.
Thank you very much. Next question will be posed to Senator at Large from Senator Liber.
Thank you, Peter. Senator Basinger, as you're aware, many St. John's have complained about property taxes. They have marched, they have had rallies, you name it. Tell us what's your proposal to address that, what have you done, and what you plan to do if reelected.
Thank you, Senator Liebert. The crisis on St. John is particularly acute because there was a revaluation done back in 2005 through 2007, and it valued St. John properties at ridiculously high values. A group on St. John filed a lawsuit and attempted to have the property values disqualified. Our governor fought this issue tooth and nail. In 2 minutes, I can't go through all the details, but I can tell you that finally the governor accepted the suggestion that the legislature made to him when we started the 28th legislature. A month before it convened in December, we said the only way we're going to be able to collect property taxes is to collect them at the 1998 level. He resisted for several years and finally realized that was the only way to do it. He engaged Bearing Point Corporation, again, which did the bad revaluations. I brought legislation this year in order to require that if we miss a tax year, that no more than one tax bill every 10 months until we're caught up. That was in Senator Hansen's committee. The governor needed the revenue, and so we saw 3 in only 1 year. What we're doing now is that we've convened a panel of experts on each island, and we've had our first meeting on St. John to do a comprehensive reform of the land tax, because all 3 islands need to be included in that. And we're going to be able to get something modeled after a state where it works so that everyone pays a fair land tax. Thank you very much for the question.
Okay. Our next question goes to the candidate for delegate to Congress. Senator Davis, your question.
Thank you again. Candidate Warren Mosler, that's correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. It's a way, it's definitely worth looking at.
You have indicated that you are residing in the Virgin Islands for 10 years.
Yes.
How long you reside in Connecticut?
I left Connecticut in 1976. And
I asked the question because somewhere I read, and correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah.
that you ran for state office in Connecticut.
Yes, I did.
And you were unsuccessful.
Yes, and
It was for the Senate?
yes, in 2010.
And you didn't change your residency?
No, the Constitution says
Which
that
one? Which one?
the
Connecticut or
U.S.
here?
The U.S. the federal Constitution, because I
see.
ran for federal office, says that you need to inhabit the state that you're elected from after you get elected. That's all it says.
You need to
You
inhabit
don't.
the
You need
state.
to. All you have to do is inhabit it. So when Hillary Clinton moved to New York and won senator, all she had to do was inhabit the state of New York after she won.
So
There's
then
no prior residency requirement in the U.S.
Okay.
Constitution.
So then,
but can I say the reason I went up there was to promote my proposal for a full payroll tax holiday, to eliminate FICA taxes, to help the U.S. economy and the Virgin Islands economy, since we send all of our FICA taxes, $200 million a year to Philadelphia. And I thought that was the best way to promote that. I was published in the Huffington Post, a leading progressive voice online magazine, and as an independent, I got to be on both CNBC and Fox Business promoting it. I had progressive economists like Jamie Galbraith promoting it for me, and it got picked up by them. I met with senators. Because I was a candidate for Senate, I had this open avenue. I made numerous press releases. I met with Congressman Cleaver from Kansas City and his economist. He liked it, and one of his economists is a friend of Mr. Love, who was President Obama's personal assistant. He got the idea to him. I went through the Connecticut senators. It was Joe Lieberman at the time, who was an independent, and Dodd was retiring. I didn't see him. Anyway, everyone liked the idea, and it passed, and we had our payroll tax holiday. Now, we didn't get the full thing, but if people remember back in 2010, your paycheck went up $20, $30 a month, and I felt that was completely successful. I came back down. I didn't even stay for the election once that happened, and I believe it's, well, without it, any economist will tell you unemployment today, instead of being 7.8%, would be over 9%, and President Obama would be in a lot more serious trouble. Thank you.
You're talking like a Tea Party.
Yeah.
May I follow up?
Yes.
Just to that last remark, look, I'm one of the leading progressive voices writing about
Okay.
how the Tea Party and how the Ryan agenda is destroying our economy.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Now you reside permanently in St. Croix.
Yes, I've resided here since 2003.
Yeah, and you are a millionaire.
Yeah. Net worth. I don't have any cash.
How
but
have you contributed to the economy of St. Croix?
Well, the people I hire in my office and the donations I've made, several $100,000 a year, and all my direct personal involvement. I brought in $30 million a year to the Virgin Islands with my payroll tax holiday, just by getting that approved. And it would have been $200 million if I'd had it my way. So, and
what you call that? What kind of?
The payroll tax holiday, the FICA suspension,
Can you explain
the money
that?
that's sent in for Social Security and Medicare to Philadelphia. We keep our own income taxes, but we send in all that FICA money that gets deducted from your paycheck directly from everybody working for a living. It's the most regressive, punishing tax the federal government has, and no progressive should stand for it for a minute. But anyway, that comes straight out of our paychecks, businesses and individuals, and gets sent to actually Philadelphia, but to Washington, D.C., to our federal government. And it's a big tax on our islands. It was over $200 million a year last I checked. I've tried to get recent numbers. I haven't been able to get them.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question will go to candidate Joseph Gums from Dr. Richardson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gomes.
Good afternoon.
As it stands now, GERS, Government Employees Retirement System, seems to be headed in a collision or with what we call full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes attitude, as was cited by General William Douglas MacArthur. Now, I am asking, can you, will you work assiduously, if elected, to bring about a correction course, because 2012 is here, and they have stated that by 2019 there will be no money for retirees. And as a matter of fact, the retirees who are now enjoying the benefits, they are enjoying the benefits based upon the persons who are in there now. But you know, of course, that's going to be diminished considerably. Do you feel you can bring about some situation for all of us collectively and individually?
Well, this is the problem that's going to call for a solution of all senators that are elected.
Right.
And I stand ready to work with the rest of the senators. It's going to also call for the delegate, whoever's elected, and for the governor to come to a solution for this problem. Because as the workforce shrinks, our populations gets older and more people retire, then of course the burden on the system becomes even greater. And we will have to do something to alleviate the total collapse of that system that would totally destroy these islands. And that's something that I could never see happen. So how will we do this? Again, painful decisions are going to have to be made. First and foremost, we have to get the senators out of the GRS pocketbook. All of these laws being passed for early retirement and other burdens that is placed on the GRS must cease and must cease immediately. Second of all, we have to implement that Tier 2 system that we have for the GRS for those people who are coming in later into government, where they might receive less benefits and will have to pay more money into the system. It's the only way that it's going to have to work. We have to come with a balance between what we're paying out to what we're getting in. So we're going to have to look at how we process the payout system for GRS. Maybe 5 years is not long enough to determine what is going to be your payout from the system. We might have to look at your entire career, because basically what is happening now is some people might receive a high-paying job for the last 5 years, but in fact, they were receiving a low payment for maybe the first 25 years of their career, and that becomes a burden for the system to pay out for the entire life of that individual. So tough decisions will have to be made, and I stand firm and steadfast with the rest of the elected officials to make those decisions.
Thank you very much. Next question to candidate Alma Francis Heiliger from Senator Library.
Thank you, Peter. Candidate Heidegger. Let's go back to GRS.
Okay.
Because GRS is one of the entities that provides a service, a lifeline for a lot of people here in the territory. And it's like the next great employer, like the government. Based on what we discussed before, and I'm sure you're familiar with GRS, there are some proposals to lift the cap, the 30 years, lift the age, because of people living longer, etc. What are your thoughts on that? And how being elected to the Senate, you can make a difference in giving the persons, the retirees in particular, some assurance that GRS is going to last a little bit longer?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Alma Francis Heiliger, number 13. A lot of times we have to look back at the history of GRS. What a lot of people didn't realize that some of the benefits that were being done and how it was set up back then had a lot to do with, at that time, individuals here in the Virgin Islands was not receiving Social Security. When you have that additional income, currently we could make adjustments from the future on. We have a lot of things that are being placed on the GRS system that I think should not be there. We recently had an issue within the community where our past governor, where a law was passed to continue giving benefits to his wife. That was a serious issue where the community said, something, why do we continuously have to be paying out when this individual stepped forward and wanted to be a public servant? Being a public servant is something saying, hey, I want to serve you. But it seems like we are perpetually going to be paying forever for everyone that steps up and wants to say, I'm going to serve the public, when in my opinion, it should be completely in reverse. There's a lot of things that I feel that GRS might have to diversify and do. They're going to have to focus a little bit more on investments. Now, some of the investments that I see that they're doing, I am not too happy with. One of the things that they had a problem with is investing in hotels on the island of St. Croix. I often tell people, unless you build the tourism infrastructure of St. Croix, you could build 100 hotels, and they're not going to go unless people want to go there. I often refer to a hotel, a cruise ship as a floating hotel, and they still don't want to go. You need to fix that infrastructure. So investing in a hotel was a bad idea for me. I think what they need to do is find sound investments that they could utilize the money for, and that monies could increase and help pay for the retirees. You cannot have a system where it's almost 50-50. It's almost like a pyramid scheme that's going to crash. You have almost the same amount of retirees as you have as people investing into the system. You can't take 100% out and pay a retiree, and the individual is only paying in 8% of their paycheck every 2 weeks. It's an impossibility.
Time.
We have to fix that.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be posed to candidate Kent Benet, Senior.
Thank you. Maybe lost my trend of thought there. But nevertheless, I will. Just before I ask a question to Mr. Bonnier, it is my understanding that the GRS is surviving based on its investment portfolio, is what's meeting the accounts now. Mr. Candidate Bonnier, you heard Delegate to Congress Warren Mosler's comment on the tax, what do you call it?
Social Security FICA, federal FICA tax conditions, yeah.
Yeah, you concur with what he said?
It's a benefit that at the time during the financial market, the president and Congress felt at the time to subsidize the Social Security as well as giving our seniors additional income. So from my view, it was a political move from a tactical point of view. My view in whenever the federal government stimulates the economy, it's good. And his point is well taken because I myself, being a former vice chair of the EDC, I spent a lot of time at Treasury with former Senator Berry. We actually spent a lot of time with Senator Dem, a finance chair of the Committee of Treasury, was Senator Charles Grassley from Ohio, and Bachtas from the Democratic side from Montana. So I'm pretty much preview from the tax breaks that pretty much is sent down by the president at a certain time to stimulate the economy. And your question is well taken, and we have an opportunity here to stimulate our economy. We right now could actually stimulate our government employees by doing right by them. The insurance guarantee cap went from $50 million through legislation recently by a senator to $5 million cap. Well, there's $16 million that go into that fund. And if we actually care about our government employees as well as taking care of the economy, we could take that $16 million, and since Diageo has been financed properly and the revenue stream is there, put another $10 million, so that'll be $26 million. And we can pay off that $300 million of retro that's actually due the people of the Virgin Islands. These are the type of things why we need education with legislation. And that will be $200 million coming to all the retro retired employees, and $100 million could be set aside to go to GRS or actually pay the government the subsidies for WAPA to give us 2 or 3 brand new turbines that would alleviate 30% of our excessive LEAC. Those are the type of quality and support as a tax study person I like to take to the legislature.
One last thing.
Thank you.
When you say pay off the retro.
The retro.
Let me finish quickly. That would include the interest owed.
That will include a settlement finally to get it off our books, and now we can go to Wall Street with a better portfolio. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question will be directed to our Senator at Large, Dr. Richardson.
Good morning, Senator Barsinger. I'm sorry, good afternoon, Senator Barsinger. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I did not get a response.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm sitting here in awe of your elocution and your appearance today, and I was just momentarily thunderstruck. Please proceed.
I shall. You said, if my memory serves me correctly, you said when you came to the legislature as the candidate at large, you came with some idealisms. And you have since then, since having served, you have some new perspectives, I believe it was. Now, since you came with idealisms, what realisms have come upon you? And may I ask, do you think these will work now because the climate of condition may be better or more favorable for the adoption and for the foregoing to take place?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Coming at the legislature, I had many years I had been involved with public service and volunteer organizations. And I thought that the legislature would be like a committee where people did research, rolled up their sleeves, and came up with good solutions to help the people of the Virgin Islands. What I didn't realize was that the legislature also was like elementary school. And that means that out on the playground, people are doing wicked things to each other. And this was a disappointment because these processes really did not contribute to the solution of problems facing the people of the territory. One thing that I discovered was that early in the 26th legislature, I realized that a senator's allotment could and was withheld in order to compel that person to vote in a way that they might not have wanted to vote. And that kind of coercion is illegal, but it was happening and it needs to stop. Another thing I found out was that the money was not being distributed to people in order to do the jobs that they needed to do, but to actually give someone incentive to vote in a manner other than their conscience dictated and the folks who elected them were desirous of them voting. So these were all shocks to my idealism. However, a great thing has happened recently because today transparency is no longer just a buzzword. It's become a necessity. We used to say, if you take more for you, better give me some too, in the Kwelde song. Mm-hmm. Today, we mean it. And now the people of this territory are asking that the corruption of the past be abandoned and that we use a transparent process in the legislature.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next question will go to candidate Warren Mosler, delegate Senator Liebert.
Thank you, Peter. Candidate Mosler. The delegate have said experience, longevity has a role in Congress, is a major part of it. I want your take on that. Number two, EDC. Just recently, Puerto Rico embarked on a new program, which already is, they're attacking some of our candidates here. You know the problem with the EDC program, that's 6 months in particular, that for residency. What are your thoughts on that? How you plan to address that to make it work for the Virgin Islands again?
Okay, thank you. First, towards the experience. Well, I have 40 years experience in financial markets, and problem solving just seems to naturally come to me with good ideas. For example, on the GERS, I've been working with them, and my proposal now, I think, is up front to have a $500 million bond secured by the rum revenue that doesn't start for 10 years because they don't need it until then, and at the same time offer current beneficiaries a payout at a discount of the actuarial value, which is high, and between those two, the fund actually becomes solvent. And I can go on with some of the others, but let me get
Go ahead.
No, here. So I've got that kind of experience. I go to Congress and talk to individuals, and I can get this payroll tax holiday type of thing passed. Okay,
one minute. So you're saying you have contact with members of Congress as you speak?
Yeah, and I have friends who have contacts, and when you have ideas, they want to hear them if they're good ideas. So I've got the ideas. My ideas on full employment and price stability were picked up by Argentina in 2001. I'd never been there. I didn't have a vote. Created 2 million new jobs, and after 2 years of people who had never been expected to work in a very small country, and within 2 years they were all hired in the private sector in one of the most successful economies in the world. It was picked up by India, the same paper I wrote, 60 million new jobs there. So influence is more, and I also want to say that in the past, it might have been important to be a party member or whatnot, but today the parties have just shut each other out.
Okay. EDC now, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands.
We are in a bad race to the bottom with Puerto Rico. And then what I mean by a race to the bottom is, whoever gives the biggest discounts to the rum companies wins. Whoever gives the biggest discounts to the EDC wins. And what happens is the discounts increase. The companies get all the benefits, and Puerto Rico and the USVI wind up with nothing. And we've got to get together with Puerto Rico and stop this race to the bottom. And I know how to do that. I know the people to contact and how to make it so it works for all of us.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be posed to candidate Joseph Gums from Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You know, we haven't really discussed health issues, the hospital. The hospitals financially are hemorrhaging. And one of the reasons for this hemorrhaging is patients who are underinsured or uninsured. Therefore, a deficit each fiscal year, 30 million plus, they are faced with. As a senator or a candidate, has you given any thought to this issue in which the hospitals will not have to carry accounts receivable of that magnitude on their books? And the caveat to that question, how can the Affordable Health Care Act help with that situation?
That's a very good question. And I've been thinking about that for a long period of time because definitely we have a severe healthcare problem in the Virgin Islands. But once again, it has to be a partnership between both the public and private sector. The problem we are facing, especially in our hospitals, that since people can't afford proper health care, they end up going to the emergency room where they spend 3 to 4 times the normal amount of money that would be necessary if they're able to go to a private provider. We have companies like Ambulatory Care that takes that in consideration and offers discounts to people who are underinsured or have no insurance, and they're able to come in and receive treatment. This kind of private sector participation with the government will help reduce our overall costs because we are closing our clinics, people are going to the emergency room, and this is what's giving us this big deficit when it comes to monies having to be paid out by the government. So again, the private sector has to step forward and the government has to work with them. There are companies out there willing to provide services. They understand the problems, but the government has to step forward and meet them halfway. This is the only way this could be done. Of course, there's a lot of good bills out there being passed, especially on the federal level. We have Obamacare, and I feel that's a step in the right direction. Because if we don't pay for this financial problem when it comes to medical care at the front end, we're going to have to pay it on the back end. And that's the problem with this government. We're paying too many things at the back end. We have overtime running, but no, we can't hire people. We're willing to pay overtime because that's on the back end. So we have to look forward to have partnership with the private sector and start to look forward to pay things on the front end. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question goes to candidate Alma Francis Heiliger. Dr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. On the island of St. John, there is a great controversy and problem about a school to be built, and it seems to incorporate or entangle the island of St. Croix in terms of exchange of lands. The person who owns this land for the most part, we talk about the federal government Park Service, well, we know that was a gift from the Rockefeller Foundation family. Do you see this becoming a reality? Will it reach fruition? Before you respond, keep in mind who the Rockefellers are and what part of the larger conglomeration of property owners and finances of the world will be involved.
Thank you so much for the question.
You're welcome.
I am quite aware of the fight that's been going on over this land swap. And I personally believe when it comes to the children of the VI, we don't need to be wasting our time with this. I think we need to step out of the box and say, you know something, before we waste any more time, let's identify a piece of land that we, whether it's government owned, that we can build something for the children of the Virgin Islands. We cannot be wasting so much time trying to fight against multi-billion-dollar corporations and whatever situation they have, and let the people and the children of the VI sit back. From time I've been this high, we've been hearing they've been trying to build a high school on St. John. Whose fault is that? Why it's not there up to this date? Why do you think that it's so important that these young children have to get up so early in the morning and travel over to the island of St. Thomas just to get an education? I've heard the argument with them saying, well, you know, it's not enough children on St. John right now that would warrant a high school. At what point do you decide that it is warranted? Do you wait until it's 300 students, 400 students? We have to be a generation and a set of leaders that have vision for the future. We have to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. We know what the situation is now. We don't need to waste any more time when it comes to the youth of the Virgin Islands. We need to stand up and fight on their behalf. And when it comes to their education, that needs to be first and foremost on the front of when it comes to educating our kids. We cannot push it to the back burner, and every election time and every campaign, this is what you hear. St. John, a high school for St. John. It's almost like a standard part of the election campaigns. It shouldn't be anymore. I want to make sure that come next election, something is already done that this question shouldn't even be asked again. That's how I personally feel. Thank you.
Follow up? Yes, thank
Yes.
you very much. Follow up. It seems then that the term eminent domain
Yes.
is not applicable unless it works against or for some people. But names such as Rockefeller, federal government, Park Service, they're used interchangeably, will not enable the St. Jonians or St. John to get a high school. My question then following up is, should we not be able to get it by eminent domain?
Well, let me say this. When things come to eminent domain, a lot of times we like to toss around this word, but we also have to realize we have to pay fair market value. And if you're a government that constantly saying you're broke, when you take something by eminent domain and you don't have money to pay for it, you can't have it. So we could talk all about eminent domain as we want, but I mean, I was listening to the debates earlier, and one of the candidates, you know, brought up the idea of taking Hovenza by eminent domain. Yeah, it sounds pretty nice, but guess what? Do you have $2 billion to pay for it? Because it has to boil down to fair market value. You know, it sounds like a great idea, but do you have the $700 million in fees that's going to come along with that refinery? Do you have the additional monies to upgrade it to a situation that it needs to be in? I think what was done to the people of St. Croix, to the people of the Virgin Islands, when that particular contract was discarded, was a grave injustice. And I guarantee you that if you put people in place such as myself, that I will fight with everything in me to make sure that things like these do not happen to the people of the Virgin Islands again. Like I said earlier, you do not sit in a Chihuahua to have a negotiation with a pit bull. You just don't do it. Because these are the type of results that we get. People casting aside contracts and acting like there's no kind of merit when you sign our agreement with individuals. Alma Francis Heiliger, number 13.
Suave.
Thank you very much. Last candidate in this round,
I want to call that.
candidate Ken Benair Sr. Your question from Senator Lane.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Ken Bernier, earlier we talked about property tax. So let's go back to St. John a little bit about the high school. Yeah. What's your take on that? Because there are many schools of thought in high school, you know, and it's been bandied around like the candidate Heidegger just mentioned. But let's hear your position on it.
You know, my position, Rocky, is frankly this. President Clinton had former Interior Secretary Babbitt actually took our water rights 3 miles out from us. And I'm saying you, President Clinton is still around. We have now Interior Secretary Ken Salsa. And I will say to you that if you approach interior in the proper manner with expertise, my colleague is right. You can't take a Chihuahua and take it to meet a pit bull. But if you have people with consciousness and what it takes, I'm prepared to talk to each of our congressional senators and as well as the Senate to actually consider transferring the property that's needed for the people of the Virgin Islands. It's just a natural human thing with some humanity involved. There's no reason why our Congress lady with Interior Secretary Ken Salsa, Anthony Bobada, with the issues with education, even your Education Secretary, Mr. Duncan, will be happy to come down, and that's how you do it. You invite them down and show them what needs to be done. We lack the skills to actually approach what it takes professionally to do.
So you're saying that no one sees it as an important issue to go forward with it?
Rocky, if they're not impacted on a daily basis, it seems like the legislatures engage in only what interests them, not the people of the Virgin Islands. It's sad to say, but you can tell from the way our island is. There's no love here anymore. They themselves have taken us down an economic road of total destruction. There's no structure. Ants build homes, birds build nests. The people of the Virgin Islands are dying. We don't even have some type of economic plan. If you have a contractor to build your house, you have to have a plan. There's no direction for the people. And that's why we're having the economic genocide that we're having. So I'm just saying to you, given the opportunity to be able to serve in the legislature, I'm confident that I can get that property for the people of the Virgin Islands.
Thank you very much. We got to remind our listeners and viewers, this is a PEO production in conjunction with WSTA Radio. VI Decision 2012, live radio on WSTA 1340 AM, and our websites, lucky13wsda.com and focusvi.com. We want to thank our great sponsors for making it possible. Innovative, Furniture Plus, T's Chicken Fry Restaurant, Frontline Systems, Lisa Melchior, KB Financial Group, IQ Events Group, Choice Wireless, Jimmy and Sons Towing, Global Training Enterprises, Mazda, John Auto Center, and Furniture Inn, along with our tech crew, MDM Inc. We want to thank our super sponsors for making it all possible. We also want to thank our candidates for being present. Now we take it back to our panelists. The next question will be directed to Mr. Bossinger, and your question comes from Mr. Davis.
Thank you once more. But before I ask my question to Senator Bossinger, first of all, it's a K-12 school in St. John, not a flat-out high school.
Yes.
And I'm happy that you were listening yesterday when I mentioned to that candidate that eminent domain is not a sugar cake process. And of course, you know, in St. John, other than the national park, we have some private landowners that we can negotiate with and talk to see if there's an appropriate site for a school. Not only the national park, but we have landowners there with substantial private holding of land. Senator Bossinger, you have focused this year primarily in the legislature on transparency. Twofold question. Other than transparency, what was your major legislative accomplishment in the 29th that served the needs of the general welfare? And since you was in the 26, 27, 28, and 29, which one of those bodies met your expectations?
Which one met my expectations? Well, I would say, thank you for the question, former Senator Davis. I would say that all of them met my expectations in that something was done. but all of them fell short of my hopes. And I think that that's probably pretty much par for the course. That's how life is. If you don't hope for more than you get, then you have missed an opportunity. But let's get back to the question at hand. In this term, the most significant project that I have undertaken has been to work on the electricity issue. And I was able to have a conference sponsored at UVI along with the Virgin Islands Energy Office, where we brought experts to the territory to work on the distributed energy grid concept. And the distributed energy grid concept is legislation which I have been drafting, and I've now added that to it something I got from Senator Dow, who is not running this time, and he has ceded authorship of the feed-in tariff legislation. And what that means is that we're going to be able to offer to all Virgin Islanders the ability to sell their roof space. In Germany, California, New Mexico, and Texas, these are places where there are companies called rent-a-roof companies, and they'll actually look at your roof and they will pay you $50, $75, even $100 a month in order to rent your roof. And then they will feed that energy into the WAPA grid. So what it does is it distributes the energy grid around, and even if you have no money to invest yourself, which many people don't, then you can make some money off of solar energy. And if there are enough, say 2,000 to 5,000 per island, then the electricity won't fail anymore because the electricity is distributed through many different locations.
Follow up quickly. The question that was asked, so therefore you have not introduced successfully any legislation that has been signed into law,
yes,
sponsored by you.
We actually do have one. We do have
primary sponsor.
Yes. We were the primary sponsor I was the primary sponsor of the bill to build new power plants. Curiously enough, this majority was able to do something we call bill napping. And Senator Dow took the bill, had it redrafted in his name, gave it a different funding source. I think everybody who's been watching the legislative hearing has seen that. Rather than complain about that and say, no fair, I said, thank you. Thank you, Majority Member Carlton Dow. We needed to pass that bill. I freely give him that. And if someone wants to bill nap any of my bills, they're all there because I'd love to share them and get them enacted. So that was our bill that will build new power plants for WAPA on St. Thomas and St. Croix.
So you had a bill that was passed that was called the bill napping.
That is our bill that we passed that was for the new power plants, and that's funded. Senator Dow's his method of funding it was to raise the tax to 14 cents from 7 cents on gasoline. And I wasn't crazy about that. I didn't feel that was the best way of doing it. I had a different funding source. But when you're in the minority, you're a voice you're a voice of conscience. And when you're in the majority, you can do things like tell legal counsel to steal a bill. And they shouldn't do it, but they did it, and now it's passed. And so the benefits will come to the people by one way or the other.
And the next round, I'm going to ask you about that gas business, that 14 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Question now goes to candidate for delegate to Congress, Warren Mosler. Dr. Richardson.
Uh-oh.
More Shakespeare.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Mosler. A little nonsense now and then is relished even by the wisest of men. But as a precursor, the novelist Don Miguel de Cervantes wrote a very interesting piece. One of them was called Las Picarescas Novelas, also Velas Picarescas, but the other was called The Man of La Mancha, El Hombre de la Mancha. And one of the lines states, and I ask, are you willing to march into proverbial hell for a heavenly cause for the Virgin Islands?
Well, I guess I would think so, but you cross that bridge when you come to it, right? You just never know. But so far, think I've probably already done that.
Okay. The reason
I'm here, aren't I?
Well, yes. And are you considering this August body held?
By
No,
the way,
the reason
by the way, my children had to say heck.
Oh, heck. Okay.
I was a very strict parent. I
well.
would point out a hectocopter flying around, and it was Hoover darned.
Yeah, okay. No, the reason I raise the question is, again, there are two accounts of bridges. Well, there's several accounts of bridges, but one that I remember fondly was one which was constructed in Rome over the Rubicon River, and the other, and that was Horatio at the bridge, and the other was the bridge by Drumgoole. And when asked why was he building a bridge when he was already on the other side, he said to enable those who are on the other side to safely cross over. Now we can talk about bridges all day, about bridge over River Kwai, bridge at Remagen, and all that if you're going to the history.
I want you on my Trivial Pursuits team
Okay.
next Tuesday night.
No. Interesting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I?
You can respond.
You can, go ahead.
Okay.
Looking for that?
No, I'll answer a couple of the previous questions, just to bring you up to date. First of all, the land swap for St. John's, I happened to be my idea that I brought up in public debate last time I ran, and I would have liked to have been part of the follow-through because I think I could get that done. For one thing, I have a small piece of land, only worth a couple of $100,000, but the park department has called me 3 times. They really want that little piece of land, so I think that could probably be worked out for the advantage of the Virgin Islands. Second of all, I've worked with the GERS, and they have made overtures to the government to buy the property taxes. This is very important. Property taxes are a very good investment for the GERS. They're very low loan to value, very safe. They pay a good interest rate if they're delinquent. And the GERS doesn't need the money today or tomorrow. They need it 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So they never have to actually force anybody out, force a sale. They don't have to collect them until after the property is sold voluntarily, and they're absolutely fine. So it would kill a lot of birds with one stone to have the retirement system by the property taxes.